We are ready for Chapter 6. That night, after a full-blown carne asada fiesta, 10 sore, gruff, and overstuffed campers crawled into Army surplus sleeping bags covered in 10 Army surplus beds. No campfire songs, nada. Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher placed their own sleeping bags under the fiberglass cover on the back deck, not far from the girls' tent where they could make sure to keep an eye on everyone. Inside the boys' tent, the air was heavy with the odor of sweaty shoes, socks, and 40 years of dust and must. Will huffed and puffed, creaking against his cot. Why is it so crowded in here? I thought this was supposed to be a 10-man tent. That's without these cots, said Frankie. Besides, you take up enough room for 2 or 3 guys alone. Now I know how a sardine feels, said Clifford. Now you know how a sardine smells, said Frankie. Cruz burst into the tent flaps. Hey, you guys, what do you think about sleeping under the stars tonight? It's way too stuffy in here. Ramon was the first to answer. I was thinking the same thing. Besides, I want to watch the moon rise through my telescope. Will jumped right up. Ramon, you rule. Within minutes, all 7 boys had grabbed their bags and dragged them outside in the center of the lawn, just beyond a gnarly umbrella branch pepper tree. They threw their pillows into a small circle, then laid their bags out like they were spokes on a wheel. It'd been almost a year since Tom had slept outside, but he remembered right away what he liked most about it. The sky. The mountain sky was filled with thousands of stars, from tiny dim ones to some bright as airplane lights. They all went down. That's what he liked the most. In every inch of the sky, from the middle of the Diamond Dome all the way to the hills and trees, stars pinpricked the night. You know, said Cruz, I could lie here and look at the stars all night. Yeah, me too, said Tom. I could look at them all day, said Frankie, except the problem with daytime is you can only see one star at a time, like the sun. The other problem is with daytime is if you see one star, you've seen them all. Frankie, said Clifford, put a jalapeno in it. We're trying to sleep. The group fell silent as if the stars demanded their full attention. Though the night was warm, Tom climbed inside of his bag and brought it up to his chin. Nearby, Ramon stepped up, setting his tripod and his telescope over near the distance. About 50 yards away, Tom could hear the muffled sounds of his father on the back porch snoring. Once they'd all shifted into position and Ramon turned off the lantern, Tom asked Cruz a question that he'd been saving for him all day long. What was it like, he said, riding all this way, all by yourself? It was hard for Tom to imagine being so free. Cruz tucked his hands behind his head. It was the greatest thing I've ever done. Really? No doubt. Like what? Said Cody. What do you mean? Well, I don't know. I've been on a bunch of horseback trips, but you're always out there with other people. It's different when you're all alone. Your mom let you do it, said Frankie. She didn't care. My mom, she's not like the typical mother. She made a trip like this once when she was about my age, and she knows me. She knew I'd be okay. I called her this morning before I left my grandma's house to check in, and I called her tonight. That's all she wants. Wow, that's really cool. I wish I had a mom like that, said Frankie. Who wouldn't, said Cody. She must really trust you. Cruz rolled over onto his stomach. Well, yeah, but it's more than that. She knows about traveling, that traveling is it's like this jolt to your body. When you hit the trail, everything is brand new. Nothing stays the same. And when you're out there all alone, it's even better. You go when you want, and you stop when you want. Your eyes see everything, like a roadrunner zipping across a field, or a blue-bellied lizard doing push-ups on a warm rock. You hear stuff that you usually would have never noticed, like the crackle snap of a cottontail running over twigs. You smell all the brush and the pine trees, your horse, the leather. I don't know, it's just like you're hyper alive. Hyper alive. Tom loved that. And crackle snap. What a word. No wonder Cruz had laughed so much listening to Hollis B today. Cruz was a born talker too, and Tom knew exactly what Cruz was talking about. Every time he walked the hills, jumping rocks, cutting through the brush, Tom would feel a jolt to his body, hyper alive, hyper alert, his eyes peeled for snakes or bones or anything wild, bursting out of a thick stand of sagebrush, stumbling onto a rainwater creek, or spotting an ancient Kumya camp right in the middle of the bright morning sun. It would set him dream sketching forever. He'd run his hand over a warm bedrock boulder, feeling the grinding hole worn smooth by centuries of other hands pushing against it on the round river rocks. crushing against ripe acorns into meal. Tom wanted in the most desperate way to reach under the pillow and grab his dream sketch to write down those words and draw the scenes. But for Tom, writing was a lot like walking in the mountains, or like Cruz's horseback trip into Dillontown. He felt best if it was something that he could do alone with no one watching. Cruz sat up and swung his legs around. "Now I got a question for you guys," he said. "What's this prophecy thing that everybody seems to be talking about?" Nobody spoke. The question hit Tom like a fastball to the gut. He knew the story best, and he felt everyone silently urging him to be the one to answer, but he couldn't do it. He did not want Cruz to know. Finally, as the silence grew too intense, Frankie reacted. "Nah, it's nothing. The town's full of dumb stories and legends." Leave it to Frankie, thought Tom, to downplay something that might make Cruz feel uncomfortable. "True ones," said Cody. "They're all true." "No, they're not," Frankie countered. "They're only true to the only true ones are about certain beautiful girls and me." "Yeah, right," said Ramon, looking up from the eyepiece. "Let me see. Yes, I think one was called The Legend of the Girl Who Kissed a Boy and Puked for Days." The bags rumbled and pounded fists and muted howls. When things resettled, Ramon, El Profesor, left the telescope and sat back down. "Okay, look. Here's all it is," he said. "A long time ago, there was this prospector named Black Jack Buck who came here from Yuma, Arizona. He was part Quechan Indian and part Irish, but also part ghost talker. I mean, that's what people say, but he did have this talent for seeing the future, and that's pretty much it." "That's it?" said Cruz. "What? That's huge! Was he like a psychic?" "I don't know, but every time he got just enough gold dust, he would head into town straight for the wine barrel room behind St. Anthony's. He'd trade a cask of black elderberry and applejack wine, blackjack they called it, and after he drank a bunch and shot up the town a little bit, he'd wander around to the church to sleep it off. But sometimes he woke up with a vision or a prophecy, and they always seemed to come true." "Not always," said Frankie. "People only remembers the one that did come true." "Well, he did predict the big drought of 1912 to 1916, said Will, "and he predicted the huge flood that ended it." "Lucky guess. He didn't even say when, he just said it would happen. Shoot, wait long enough and anything'll happen." Will was not to be denied. "Oh yeah? Well, what about the collapse of number 9 mine? Remember that?" "Yeah," said Cody. "He did predict John Dillon's death and his own." "All 9 miners," Will explained to Cruz, "who happened to just be on the town's baseball team, all died in that one. That's why that stone monument is out past center field." "Okay, another lucky guess," said Frankie. "He said a team of 9 will meet their fate. I mean, go search those hills and eventually you'll find 90 miners who got buried up there. Anybody could have predicted that." Cody had more. "Maybe. But crashes to crashes, dust to dust, 9 go to heaven and a gold mine bust." That's what he said. And then boom, their mine explodes into this big dust cloud that covered the sun. Ramon kept going. "Anyway, he also predicted the death of this town, his last prophecy, and the one that everybody's talking about." "How does that one go?" "It's another poem," said Cody. "A poem?" Cruz laughed at that. "He was a poet and a psychic?" "Only after enough homemade wine," said Will. "I forget how it goes, but there's this stranger who comes to town, and he causes the death of a great man, and the whole town goes to ruin, and that's what people are so worried about." "There's one more part," said Ramon. "Supposedly, the guy who dies has a secret. And if that secret's discovered in time, the town will be saved." "Well, okay," said Cruz. "Now you're talking." Cody rolled over and spun toward Tom. "Say the poem, Tom. You're the only one who knows the whole thing." Tom, still stargazing, squeezed his eyes shut. He knew this was coming. "You guys," he paused. "It's not that easy to remember." But he was so vastly outnumbered, they all knew he knew the poem, and they all, even Frankie, demanded to hear it. Tom slowly rose and crossed his legs, facing the center of the circle. He could feel his hands were moist, his mouth was dry. "Okay," he said. "First, he always starts a prophecy with the same couplet." "With what?" said Will. Shh, said Cody. It's that little poem, you know. Tom drooped his eyes so that he could wander to the back of his brain, and then he started, slow as a death march. Blackjack bucks in a wine barrel room, a barrel-house king who sees all things. I see days of discord, doom, and gloom. I see a swirling wind. Under the rays of the rising sun, I see a stranger from the east ride in. The stranger spurs a great man's death. I see Dillontown torn asunder. Lest the dead man's secret be learned before the town falls prey to plunder. Oh, the stranger lies between lies and truth, but the truth lies here, my friends. A double cross begins the day, and by a double loss it ends. For a moment, a graveyard silence filled the air. Tom felt sure everyone else was now thinking what he'd been thinking ever since Cruz had appeared, that Cruz was the stranger, and that somehow, maybe even by accident, he had caused the death of someone great. Someone with a secret. Cruz lowered himself back down onto his stomach, propping himself up with his elbows. Well, he said, I'll say this. That guy's a born poet. Yeah, Frankie ventured. What else? What do you think it means? Tom noticed his stomach tighten at the question. Cruz hunched his shoulders. No say, but I do think I know the secret that will save this town from plunder. You do? Yep, and Tom and I have a plan to get it. Tell him, Tom. What? What do you mean? You know, Mr. 19 for 19. Tom's heart pounded. I still don't know. Yeah, you do, he addressed them all. We are going to, Tom and I, we're going to ask Mr. Dante Delgado if he'd come down here and coach our team and share the secret of hitting with us. The other boys sent out a whooshing sound that filled the sky. We are, said Tom. When did we? Then, out of the dark, came a voice. I think that's the best idea I've heard all day. All heads whipped around to see Maria appear out of the shadows of the pepper tree. And here I thought you guys were all idiots. Then out popped Rachel and Tara, and as all three girls approached, they were clutching their sleeping bags against them. We're sleeping out here too. That tent's okay, but Tom, your dad snores like a dog barking backwards. She looked around. Besides, we heard you laughing, but over there, it's like we're not even a part of the team. Of course you are, said Frankie. You kidding? He sat up and wiggled his bag to the side, as if in a kayak, scooting up against Will to make more room. Here, Rachel, squeeze in between me and Cody. Yeah, right, Maria tossed her bag on the ground beneath the tree. Nice try, Poncho, but no squeeze plays. We're sleeping over here. We just didn't want to be left out. Yeah, that's cool. Cruz rose and waved. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Tara. The sisters grinned, then spread out their bags out past Maria's. Tom sat stunned as if in a dream. It was weird enough that both Frankie and Cruz could talk to girls as easy as they talked to boys. An astounding feat by Tom's standards. But when Cruz told everyone that Tom would help them talk to Delgado, that idea, outnumbered, numbed his whole body. Maria settled in on top of her bag. Look, she said, you guys just go back to scratching and belching and telling dumb jokes. Don't mind us. But remember, we're all in this together. We are a team. So, you say it's okay? Asked Will. If a crazy man coaches our team? Desperate times, said Maria, call for desperate measures. And right now, we're all desperados. But after hearing those ladies attack Mr. G today, I know they're going to blame us too if we don't come through. So, I'm up for taking my chances with the crazy man. I say go for it. She twisted around, banged her pillow, and then lay back down against it. She only said a few words, but for Tom, they were strong, beautiful words. We're all desperados. We're all in this together. Go for it. Who cares about a dumb old prophecy? Who cares if we're facing some overcoached, oversmug baseball team? Who cares if a wild girl might just sit up and talk to you at any moment, is sleeping just 20 feet away? A desperado like Tom could handle that, right? And he only had to turn sideways to see her lying there, dressed in shorts and a t-shirt, a bent knee stuck in the air. But now he realized he was seeing her, La Desperada, in a brand new light. And it wasn't just the stars.